this. Welcome once again here on Inside Movies Galore. Here in the room, I have director Sam Mills with me. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from, first of all, and how did you get involved with filmmaking, per se?
Well, David, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm Sam Mills, and I am in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I kind of got into filmmaking just honestly, it was just a passion of mine. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I've always had a very visual imagination, and as a storyteller, I've written stories, but film has always been my first passion, just because I'm a very visual person, and I wanted to show my stories instead of telling them.
Okay. And where did you go first? Where did you start? I understand that Chameleon Shadow is not your first film, so why don't you?
Film. No, back in 2008, I bought a camera, and me and my brother came up with an idea for a film called Disembodied, which it was kind of funny. I had no idea how to make a film at the time. I just thought it was pretty simple. Just, do a bunch of footage and then edit it together. And it took me about a year to finish a 42-minute film.
Okay.
And made a sequel to that. And, they came out okay, but I decided then and there that I probably should get some education. So despite being almost 30 years old at the time, I went back to school and got a bachelor's degree in film and media arts. And Chameleon Shadow is the first feature I've made since I got my education, and I think it made a big difference.
Cool. Where do you do most of your filming? By the way, just to be curious.
Most of my filming?
Yeah. Do you film kind of nearby or?
Yeah, I filmed in my house. I filmed in certain locations in Salt Lake City. With Shadow, we were actually lucky enough to have kind of an older business that had some old buildings that were, dilapidated. We were lucky enough to be able to rent that space for, a few months and film quite a bit of the movie in that location without having to worry about interruptions.
Okay. Sounds cool. Now, did you have any problems finding any actors or actresses for any films while you were filming?
That was the easy part because, I know plenty of actors, or people that want to be actors, and like in Chameleon Shadow, the woman that I worked with closely with that, she actually is a screenwriter herself and an actress, and so she was really happy to be involved. And I think that if you just go on Facebook and just type in, "Hey, I'm filming a movie. Who wants to be in this film?" you get more than enough people volunteering. And of course, you kind of get what you pay for. But in this case, I actually found some very talented people, and was very happy with what I ended up with.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a little bit about each one of your films. So I'm going to start with Disembodied. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that was about first, and whether there were any problems that you were dealing with on the set, and what you think that you've learned as a director from what you've learned from that experience, or whatnot. Or
okay, so Disembodied. Oh yeah, that was so I was renting a house for my brother, and whether you believe in ghosts or not, I believe that the house was haunted, and I came up with this idea of, what if ghosts could talk to us, and what if someone who had been murdered could actually tell us, "Hey, I was killed," and give us some details on that. And so I came up with this idea of a boy that was staying at his mother's house, and a disembodied voice tells him that, "Hey, the man that murdered me is coming after you now." And essentially becomes a film about, first about revenge, and then it kind of goes into themes of this voice giving him knowledge that a human being could not possibly know, in order to try and cure his disease, and it kind of goes from there.
Okay. And the sequel to it, why don't you tell me a little bit about its summary, what it Does it have anything to do with the first one?
It does. Basically, it does. I mean, so in the second one, I play the brother of the ghost, and so I play the brother on screen and this ghost, and it's kind of a similar theme about, hey, the man who killed me he got away with this, and I need you to help me find this killer. And of course, the whole thing is a trap to lure him into a really dark world. So without spoiling the first film, it kind of has to do, it kind of has to do a little bit with it has to do with themes that we know can't possibly be true because of how the first film ended.
Now, from what I understand, you told me that both of these films had a limited release at one point in time, correct?
Yeah, I actually at the time, Create Space was a distributor that released films on DVD and released them on Amazon. Oh, excuse me, distributed it on Amazon, and so they did have a limited release on Amazon, and also the streaming service. People could buy a digital copy as well.
Okay.
This was before. I think this was before Prime was really a big deal.
Totally understand. So, did you work with any previous actors that were in Disembodied on Chameleon Shadow?
Oh yeah, in fact, my brother, who was the star of Disembodied, he shows up in Chameleon Shadow as the father of a family that basically more or less is affected by the events of Chameleon Shadow, but they're kind of they're not part of the main storyline, but it definitely shows what's going on outside of the main storyline and how people are being affected by that.
And now, did you want to tell us a little bit about what Chameleon Shadow is all about?
Yeah, so Chameleon Shadow is about a photographer and artist who has these recurring nightmares, and he sees a strength that he just can't stand, and he feels like he's not getting any help. So his friend, who is a student of psychology, recommends some alternative methods, including mentioning a specialist known as the Chameleon, and he basically goes to see this being who more or less cures him, but the cure turns out not to be really a cure at all. It basically the nightmares are taken out of his head, but then they're put out there for the world to see, and they're kind of at the mercy of his nightmares, essentially.
Okay. So, what are the sort of films that you tend to watch or that you somewhat get inspired by when you go about and try to get inspiration? If there were any films that you could say that you would say that you derive some of your ideas from, do you have any?
I do. I've always been a big horror fan, and I love films like A Nightmare on Elm Street, and actually like slasher films and stuff like that. Things that kind of challenge our perceptions of reality in a way.
Okay.
But Chameleon Shadow was sort of a genre bender. It's more of a drama that has some horror elements. And one of the main inspirations for that was Persona, which came out, I think, 1968, I believe.
Okay.
And so that was a film about a woman who, she was a nurse, and her patient was this woman that couldn't speak. And then as the film goes on, it turns out that the two women may or may not be the same person. And so this kind of idea of facing yourself a little bit was sort of an inspiration for the Chameleon Shadow storyline.
Okay, cool. So do you have any future projects or anything like that you're working on that you'd like to tell us about, or down the road? Or
I do. So I definitely have a follow-up for Chameleon Shadow in mind.
Okay.
I want to kind of increase the budget and just kind of make more of a continuation of the story, but more of a standalone sequel as well, so that people who haven't seen the original can watch it and still understand it. I'm also working really closely with a great friend and filmmaker as well on a project that's like kind of a post-apocalyptic film that we're working on as well. And then I just kind of want to start, working on some shorts as well.
Okay.
Amazon has really opened up the door for indie filmmakers, and I really want to try and get as much content on there as possible, and just kind of
Cool.
take advantage of the opportunity that they're giving filmmakers to get their work seen.
Cool. And what is it that you want to accomplish, at least as an indie filmmaker? What is your total goal? And how do you feel that you are as a filmmaker now? Now that you've somewhat rebooted your.
My career. Well, hopefully. Honestly, money is not the factor. I know a lot of filmmakers say, "Oh, I want to make it rich and be rich and famous." Once you put that idea out of your head, it's very liberating. My goal is really just to tell my stories.
Okay.
And I have more stories to tell than I could possibly make in a lifetime. But just picking the best stories and just getting my message out there, and just providing the world with my perception of reality is pretty much my ultimate goal.
Okay. Cool. All righty. Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about some of the things that you made and want to make and whatnot. So I appreciate you coming on. So, is there anything else that you'd like to tell the audience while we're on the air before we let you go?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to say is that, my advice to anyone that's trying to get into making films is to, just make your film. Don't wait for the money. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. Just do it. I mean, even if you're just making a film with your iPhone or your cheap handy cam that you bought 10 years ago, just make your film. Make the films that, that you can. And the rest of it will just work out.
Okay, cool, man. Well, again, I appreciate your time and appreciate your candor, and thanks for coming on. I'm definitely looking forward to watching your first two films, as long as you're as well as the rest of your Chameleon Shadow myself. So, but definitely check out. Now, I understand that Disembodied 1 and 2 are on YouTube, correct?
Yes, they are streaming currently on YouTube. So if you want to find them, just type in Disembodied Sam Mills, and they should just pop up in the search engine.
Okay, and where can we find Chameleon Shadow, by the way?
Chameleon Shadow currently is streaming on Amazon Prime, and you can also buy a digital copy or rent it if you'd like. And it's available in the US, the UK, Germany, and in Asia, in Japan. Okay. On the Japanese website. It's just on the streaming service for now. I haven't done a physical release yet.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely Amazon Prime and digital is the way to see that one.
Okay, cool. And do you have any websites that you'd like to tell us about that people can follow you or whatnot, or
Yeah, Facebook for sure. Chameleon Shadow does have a Facebook fan page there.
Okay.
Still kind of working on my IMDb. As you kind of pointed out, it's not complete because it doesn't include all of my previous work. And that's kind of what happens, I think with a lot of indie filmmakers is that before you know it, you actually have this resume and you kind of forget to do some of that. So I definitely will be getting my IMDb up and running, and maybe in the near future, I'll even have a website, but currently nothing right now. But definitely feel free to look at the Chameleon Shadow website on Facebook, and I'll put updates there.
Awesome. All righty. Well, once again, this has been Sam Mills. Ladies and gentlemen, definitely check out his Chameleon Shadow, which is now streaming on Amazon. And definitely, if you can, check out some of his previous work. I'm sure if you're an indie filmmaker out there who wouldn't mind checking out other films that might have been straight up your alley, definitely check those out as well. That's Disembodied 2, and Chameleon Shadow. Thanks for coming on. And my name is David Streggy. I have been your host on Inside Movies Galore. I run Movies Galore Milwaukee, which is a group as well as a blog page, and I'm also a small-time producer of sorts. I have a project which will eventually be coming out this year called Wrestle Massacre, so definitely check that out come summertime or whatnot. Once that gets entirely filmed, from what I understand. So, in any case, thanks for listening, folks, and hopefully you have enjoyed this interview. I certainly have. And definitely check out his work. In any case, have a good afternoon, folks.